Morning, good afternoon, whatever time zone you're watching this in. I wanted to tell you in this video how I got into med school even though I was a high school dropout. The last grade I completed was 9th grade in the Dominican Republic and 8th grade in the United States. I entered healthcare in 2003. I then went and entered pre-med in 2010. When I entered pre-med in 2010, all I had was a high school diploma. Well, not even a high school diploma, a GED. If you're not in the United States, a GED is basically a general equivalency diploma, where it's kind of like you challenge the knowledge that you're supposed to learn in high school, and once you get it, it's equivalent to a high school diploma. So I took this exam and I challenged it, which means I barely took any, barely prepared for it, but I took it and passed it. Afterwards, I'm sorry for the camera shaking, but I'm driving and there's a lot of bumps here on the road. Yeah, so I took the exam and I passed it. Afterwards, I got my paramedic certificate. And when I was a paramedic, I noticed that there's a lot of people working in the emergency room, and a lot of the doctors, the nurses were foreigners. They came from Africa, they came from India, they came from all over the world, and they had very heavy accents. And I noticed that via their accent, I noticed that they weren't from the States. And I used that literally as motivation. Like, I saw that they could do it and they were successful. And I was like, hey, I'm born and raised here in the States. So if they're coming from wherever they're coming from, learning English and being law-abiding citizens here in the United States and having a successful career, then I should be able to do the same thing too. And then I started investigating, I started talking to a lot of them, and I ran across the fact that there's Dominican medical schools that are accredited here in the States, and my family's from the Dominican Republic. I went, I got information, I found out that since my family's Dominican, I get dual citizenship, and I paid $35 per credit, and the tuition for medical school for me was less than the price of a Honda Accord. So financially, it made a lot of sense. Also, the pre-med path in the medical school I was in was 2 years, as opposed to the bachelor's that I would have had to do here in the States, as opposed to the possible post-bac that I would have had to done here in the States, as opposed to taking the MCAT and the SAT and whatever other exams they would have had, whatever other loops and hurdles I would have had to gone through. If I had to go through them, no matter what, then I would have done it. But being that I had another path, which was going into medical school overseas, I took that path. Basically, I started in 2010 with little to no education, I guess you could say, besides the paramedic education that I received and whatever education I received in junior high school. And I passed, obviously, and that's how I got into medical school. And I basically did it overseas because it was cheaper, it was faster, and I was in my mother's land. Obviously, everyone's case is different. You could still do it, because I had classmates that were literally from nowhere near the Dominican Republic. I had classmates from Canada, from Wisconsin. I had a classmate from Nebraska, and everyone had their own reason. Either their MCAT score wasn't that high, or they tried to get into the medical school in the States and couldn't get in, or it was just financially. I remember I had this one frugal classmate. He was an upperclassman. He was very frugal, and I call it AKA, also known as being very smart with your money. And he went to medical school just because it was cheaper. He went to medical school in the Dominican Republic just because it was cheaper compared to going to school here in the States. And he graduated, he took his boards, he matched into internal medicine, if I'm not mistaken, and now he's back in Nebraska and doing his thing. You know, it's appealing to be able to get the same product or the same title at the end of the day for a quarter of what you would pay for it if you were doing it here in the States. So that's my story. That's how I got into medical school. Hopefully you'll be able to get some motivation from it, and or maybe an idea as to your path and your journey. And thank you for staying tuned to the end of the video. Please subscribe, leave any comments if there's any videos that you're interested in me making for the near future. Press that like button, and also tell a friend that could maybe that could also use this information. And anything that you would like for me to talk about specifically, please let me know, and I'm here for you. Thank you for watching.